Ocean City, New Jersey, known as America's #1 family resort. A place so innocent and pure, it's literally a dry town. It's the perfect place to get away for a week in the summer, and what really sets it apart from any other beach town is the boardwalk. Iconic pizza shops and ice cream spots, music, shopping, and games and rides for all ages make it absolutely perfect for the kind of G-rated fun people young and old can enjoy, all in a safe and positive and family-friendly environment. That is, until this happened.
Ocean City leaders held a news conference today with hopes of curbing chaos down the shore.
Scary. We don't want to have this beautiful place tarnished.
They stopped running.
Now, I wanted to talk about this because there is an obvious reason why all of this is happening now, and nobody is talking about it. And that reason, my friends, as you know from the title, is Uber. And the thing is, it's easily fixable. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little optimistic, but I really feel that if this video falls upon the right ears, or at least the concept falls upon the right ears, maybe we can make a little difference. Now, I'm obviously going to talk about the Jersey Shore in this video because that's what I'm familiar with and that's where I drive, but I have a feeling that this idea, this concept applies to so many areas across the country, especially vacation areas that have a ton of people packing into a small vicinity. So last weekend, well, 2 weekends ago now, was Memorial Day, the unofficial start to the summer, at least here in the Northeast. And as such, pretty much everyone goes down the shore, as we say. And for what felt like the third or even fourth year in a row, we saw absolute chaos. In Ocean City, thousands of kids overtook the boardwalk. People who were there told me that they had to shelter in place in any nearby store that they could get in. There was an insane amount of theft, a massive girl fight, and to put a nice little bow on the chaos, a 15-year-old got stabbed. Fortunately, he was okay. A little further north in Seaside Heights, of Jersey Shore fame, had a similar weekend with mass chaos ensuing when a teenager dropped a gun on the boardwalk, causing rumors to spread that there was an active shooter, and everybody freaked out accordingly. And then further down the coast, in Wildwood, they literally had to issue a state of emergency because it got so bad. I was actually driving there over Memorial Day weekend, and it was nuts. I've never seen so many cops out.
Jesus, man, what the f is going on here?
The mayor of Wildwood made a statement that said, and I quote, "Wildwood will not tolerate unruly, undisciplined, unparented children." I never heard the term unparented before, but that is like, I just love that burn. It sounds polite and respectful, but it's pretty savage. It's coming at you and your mama. There's obviously a ton of factors that go into something like this. For instance, the rest of that quote from the Wildwood mayor read, "We will not stand by while the laws of the state tie the hands of the police." And what that's referencing is something I didn't know until I started looking into this story, but apparently in 2021, the state of New Jersey passed a bunch of laws that are basically making it a lot easier for things like this to happen. Mainly scaling back how officers are allowed to interact with juveniles. They're no longer allowed to fine or arrest people for underage drinking or simple possession, and can only issue a warning. Hence the fact that there was 1,300 warnings issued on the Ocean City boardwalk alone. But what's more is that now people under the age of 21 aren't considered old enough to reasonably give consent. I gotta say that again to make sure you understand what I'm saying. The state of New Jersey does not believe that people have the mental capacity to give consent to search their own person until they're 21 years old. They can take out a 6-figure loan to go study basket weaving for 4 years, but they can't consent to a search. Like, this world, there's just some things I will never... Oh, all right. And remember that because it's very ironic and relevant to what I'm going to talk about later. And look, I get it. The spirit of the law is to reduce the number of juveniles in the court system and reduce the number of kids that get records that'll stick with them for the rest of their lives. I get that, which I agree with wholeheartedly. I mean, I always thought underage drinking was kind of like when they give speeding tickets. It happens all the time and cops just randomly decide to enforce it. All that does is create more unwanted and unnecessary interaction between the police and the public and erode our faith in the system that's supposed to protect us. I don't know if you guys remember this video, but this was actually from Wildwood Beach a couple years ago, and it made national news, and it was one of the reasons why the government thought it should scale back some of the enforcement. This was all over an open container on the beach, which so many people had. But at the same time, I don't think anyone on earth would say that it's good to have thousands of kids drinking and smoking together anywhere, but especially on a family-friendly boardwalk. Now, for some reason, that's always boggled my mind is that there never seems to be any middle ground when we talk about criminal justice. Classic example, let's give the police tanks and military equipment or totally defund them. Or in this case, let's put people in handcuffs over an open container or decriminalize it to the point that police aren't allowed to speak to people under the age of 21. Call me crazy, but a cop asking somebody to throw their alcohol out or put it in a cup without having to write them up or arrest them, I don't know, seems like a reasonable compromise. But that doesn't seem to have a place here in the good old US of A, so don't hold your breath if you're hoping for some sort of change on the policy front. That's why in this video I want to highlight the contributing factor that everybody is forgetting about and can actually be changed. And that, my friends, is Uber and Lyft. And just to reiterate, this wasn't a one-off event. There's articles and news coverage and social media videos going back for the past couple of years showing that it's worse than it's ever been.
Past years, it wasn't as chaotic, but I feel like it's got more popular to a point, it's like getting a little dangerous.
I specifically wanted to include that clip because I know it is like the most cliche thing for the older generations to say that the next generation or the youngest generation is worse than it's ever been. But when you see people from that younger generation saying that it's never been worse, then you know it's a problem. The mayor of Ocean City, who this year was all over the news saying that this kind of behavior will not be tolerated, was quoted in this article from last year saying, "Enough is enough. It's become clear over the past 2 summers that these crowds will only grow larger and unrulier unless something changes." It's like, dude, you're the one that can change it. Do something. And if you don't know what to do, which, if we're being honest, it seems like you don't, I got the answer for you. Just stay tuned. I got to build a story a little more so people who don't know what's going on can, realize how important it is. Plus, if the video is too short, YouTube's going to bury it. So it encourages creators to be a little tangential. The Ocean City police chief blamed New Jersey's new law saying that someone under the age of 21 can't consent to a police search for marijuana or alcohol. Now, this is interesting. Word spread fast among teens who know they don't have to give officers their names as long as they don't walk away from the officer during questioning. These kids even know that officers themselves could face charges if they violate the rights of teens in these circumstances. Now, if I got one thing against liberal policymakers, it's exactly this. I don't know if they just have this blinded idea of the goodness of people, or if they just think people are too dumb to figure out ways around the law. I learned this when I was in, I guess, what I would call social work. I used to work with people who were addicted to crack cocaine. Some of them were homeless. And what really struck me about these people is that as downtrodden as these people were, they knew every which way to work the system. I always thought if they just put the same amount of energy they had into obtaining crack or staying out of jail or scheming the system, they'd be crushing it. And if there happen to be any unruly teens watching this video that's not picking up what I'm putting down, just know you're the crackhead in this scenario. Take your young, dumb energy and put it towards something good. You got the number one commodity on your side, and that's time, baby. Sky's the limit. I sound like such an old man. Enough with the tomfoolery. Now, before I tell you how Uber is causing this and how it can easily be stopped, I already know what some people are going to say. oh, it's always been bad. It's just that it's getting more attention now. And look, I'll be the first one to agree that people would be lying if they act like there wasn't always a group of teens doing what teens do.
I got arrested for fighting. I put some girl in the hospital.
I got arrested for saying
She's still in the hospital now. This happened like a week ago.
The thing is, the quality of bad is the same. Stealing is stealing, a fight is a fight. But the difference is now is that there's so many more of them. I'm telling you, as somebody who's been going to the Ocean City Boardwalk all of my life, it has never been like this. And that's because back then, it was just the kids from Ocean City or the kids staying there for vacation. Now, it's those kids plus all the kids who live and vacation in the neighboring shore towns. See, back in my day, you go down the shore and it's not like you knew anyone's shore house's phone number, and even if you had a cell phone, the whole group chat thing didn't exist. So you had to roll up to the boardwalk solo or maybe with one or two buddies, and who you come across is who you come across. And even when us millennials did get cell phones, we didn't come of age in a time of social media. I drove a lot of kids over Memorial Day weekend, more on that later, and I dusted off my communications degree and had a pretty few solid conversations about this topic. And I think the main thing that most people don't understand is how connected the average teen is these days compared with generations prior. Before social media, when you met somebody outside of your high school or your neighborhood or your sports teams or anyone outside of your immediate environment, it was a one and done. That interaction you had was it. Like, I would have friends that I meet down the shore, and then we'd go home, and then the next year, I'd hope I'd see them again, but then some of them vanished forever. Julie from the Wonder Bar, I still wonder where you are. But now, when kids have those kind of one-off social interactions, they can stay connected to that person with social media. And I think that's a good thing, a great thing, actually. Networking is the lifeblood of success. Man, did I just think of that? That's actually kind of good. I must have heard that somewhere. I got to look that up. Yo, I think I made that up. I made that quote up. Obviously not saying anything new, but it just sounds really cool. But the reason this pertains to this topic is that, say that the Gen Z version of Julie from the Wonder Bar makes a post saying that she's going to the Ocean City Boardwalk. The Gen Z version of Driver Ed isn't sitting at home looking up at the stars, wondering if Julie's looking at the same stars. Joe Dirt, anyone? Gen Z Driver Ed sees that post, puts on way too much Axe body spray, and heads up to the Ocean City Boardwalk, hoping that when he accidentally crosses paths with Julie, he has enough guts to say what's up. And then when I get to the when Gen Z Driver Ed gets to the boardwalk, he makes a post that he's there, and then some kid that I got in a fight with last year at the basketball court sees that, and he rolls up to the boardwalk looking to settle a score. And then, all right, I'm going to cut the rest of that hypothetical story for the sake of time, but you should know. It ends with me kicking that kid's ass and getting a girl. But you guys get the point. If everyone you know is posting they're going to the Ocean City Boardwalk, you're going to go to the Ocean City Boardwalk. And then when you post it, everyone in your network's going to see that, and so on and so on and so on. It's kind of like when the group chat decides to meet at a certain bar or a restaurant, except in this case, the group chat is every teenager that has Snapchat within a 30-mile radius. But it's not just the large network that makes this generation so much different than any others. I don't think anybody understands, other than Uber drivers, how many kids take Uber and Lyft. And I know people will say kids have always been able to get rides, or a comment I saw a lot on my video about Uber Teen. What's the big deal? Kids have always been able to order taxis. First of all, as far as kids getting rides, you don't have to be a licensed family psychologist to know that the kind of kids that are getting picked up and dropped off by their parents aren't the kind of kids that are robbing stores and carrying knives. And as far as the taxi argument, it always amazes me how short people's memories are. Everything about the logistics of cabs made this boardwalk scenario impossible for teens back in the day. These kids would have to call a cab company, schedule a ride to the boardwalk, schedule a ride home, all for a much higher price that you would have to pay on the spot. No attaching daddy's credit card to the app like you can with Uber. And pray the the cabbie would actually show up to take them when he could just post up outside of a bar and get a much better fare. Now, I know a lot of you have seen my Uber teen video, and it absolutely boggles my mind how this is still a thing. And I'm really hoping that it doesn't take a tragedy for people to wake up to it. Like I mentioned earlier, the state of New Jersey decided that until people are 21, they don't have the wherewithal to give police consent to search their own person. But in the same state, 13-year-olds are literally allowed to order an Uber, get a ride from a stranger from the internet. How is that okay? What's even more frustrating as an Uber driver is that even though I turned the Uber teen option off, so in theory, it's supposed to prevent me from getting rides with teenagers, I still get so many requests from kids who are obviously underage, and I don't realize that until I pull up to the pickup spot. And like I said in the Uber teen video, if I'm taking the time to go out of my way to go and pick somebody up, especially when there's a surge and I know it's going to be a good paying ride, I'm not going to play bouncer and ask to see ID, because what's my end game? Best case scenario is that I have to cancel the ride and I make no money, just wasted time. Worst case scenario is it leads to an argument or maybe even a physical confrontation. And just as a side note, I am definitely not encouraging anyone to take minors. And to be clear, the only reason I feel comfortable doing that, honestly, the only reason I feel comfortable with Uber in general is because I have a dash camera. And if you're driving without a dash camera, I know I'm a broken record at this point, you're playing with fire. Get a dash camera. The point I'm trying to make is, despite me turning Uber teen off and despite me staying away from areas that I know would be a high likelihood of picking up kids, of the 53 rides I gave Memorial Day weekend, I would estimate about 10 or 11 of them were kids that I would guess were underage. And that's like 20% of my rides. And if you had the power to take away 20% of those kids on the boardwalk, that would make a huge difference. But for whatever reason, there is absolutely nothing in place to prevent kids from taking an Uber. And I really don't get it. Like, there were literally campaigns from Uber and Lyft talking about how people need to be safe when they're taking an Uber or Lyft. Think about what that meant. Literally campaigns from the company saying that the drivers of their company might be dangerous. And there's no shortage of people, adults, who talk about how unsafe they feel when they call an Uber or Lyft. But it's like the second convenience enters the conversation, the moment parents find out that they don't have to drive their kids, let's throw caution to the wind. Uber and Lyft have money to make. And therein lies the solution. Start holding these companies accountable for the people that use their platform. Mainly anyone under the age of 18. You don't even have to incentivize drivers with money. If I knew that Uber would get punished for allowing unsupervised minors in my car, I'd gladly report it, and I know other drivers would too, because it would finally force Uber and Lyft to verify these riders and make it a better and safer experience for drivers, something we've been screaming about for years. Other very simple solutions to this would involve only allowing verified riders to get trips to the boardwalk, or banning Uber teen drop-offs at the boardwalk in general. Another simple fix, have designated areas for drop-off at the boardwalk, just like they do at stadiums or train stations or airports. Start controlling the flow of insanity before it even gets to the boardwalk. Throw a few cops there too to spook the troublemakers before they can get all riled up. Moral of the story is, Uber is a major reason why teens are now ransacking these Jersey Shore towns in numbers that we've never seen before. And any law or policy that will deter minors from taking an Uber or Lyft will drastically help in solving that problem. If you aren't familiar with the insanity that is Uber teen, you can check out this video here. Thanks for watching.
Come up on the boardwalk and just meet somebody like that. It can turn into a serious relationship, like me and Janet. We hooked up tonight together, and like I'm probably gonna be with her for the rest of the summer.
It's different every night. You can stay together forever, or it's different.